No sleep till streaming. Hello, hello. Welcome to the show. This is the weekly Spinner Rack, and I'm your host, Chris. We're actually starting about, a minute and a half late? Sorry about that, folks. Just delays getting everything started, technical stuff. I'm probably going to have to let my producer go. They're just doing a terrible job getting me set up in time. So, that's just how it is. But otherwise, it's great to see you. This is a show where we are going to talk about a lot of comic book news of the past week, and then we'll take a look at some of the comics that came out in this past week, those comical books. Let's see. We got a lot of people. I'll try to do a few shout outs. It's going to go fast. Can't get everybody, but hello to Jamil and Simrix. Hello to Steve. And my mouse is going bad. All right, here we go. Sam and Esme and Clay, nice sweater. Yeah, that's my Godzilla sweater. Teddy Fresh. Now that's a shirt. I like it. Glad it's making impact. Let's see. Oh, okay. It's just going way too fast now. I can't catch up. Hey, I recognize that name. That looks like a wife. That's awesome. Yeah, you won't hear me having to plug the the campaign anymore. I would call that a success. And yeah, it was nice. Thank you all for your support there. I really do appreciate that. That was really, really nice. Let's see. I'm Googling the sweater. It's on Teddy Fresh, if anybody's curious. Yeah, Ski Ronk is correct. It was a big week in terms of comics that came out, in my opinion. I'm just big for me anyway. These are all just the comics I got this week. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. I always like to start it off by just doing top of the show greetings and stuff, and we're going to go through a lot of comic book news, so I'm really excited for that. Let's see. There's my sister. I'm having internet trouble here, so I'm not sure I can watch tonight. Really? That's boy. Sorry to hear that. That's nice of you to drop that note in, Gene. Let's see. Let's open up some of the news, because boy, is there a lot. You know what? Let me address one thing. If you're looking at the thumbnail of this and you're looking at the title, there's a reason I have that question mark in the Netflix One Piece test screenings. I figure this is worth addressing right at the beginning. There was a report that a test screening was disastrous. That's pretty much been debunked. We're going to get into that later in the news. That was only really something that came up this afternoon, shortly before I started the show. So we'll sort of talk about both ends there, not really the report itself, because that doesn't seem to be real, but maybe just why things like that happen. But it was more I'm more commenting on the news of the fact that fake news got around. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out. Apparently there has not been a test screening, so there's no test screening to have go badly. Okay, so it's basically, I think, just something people were very easily able to believe. But we'll talk about that later. We've got a lot of news today, a lot. So let me pull this up. And yeah, there, we've got that centered pretty well. I don't know how many of you are aware of the Frazetta-verse, but the granddaughters of Frank Frazetta have been licensing out his creations, his paintings, into a series of comics by a publisher called Opus. I'm having a coffee because I want to perk up. I'm a little tired today. So there is a Frazetta-verse comic coming out for Free Comic Book Day. Always the first Saturday in May. So that's coming up real soon. What's that, 2 weeks or so? I'm going to look at a calendar really fast. Let's see. We've got, basically 2 weeks. Just over. Oh, for Saturday itself, that'd be the 6th. So that's actually almost 3 weeks, just to be clear. But fair enough. So we've got Free Comic Book Day coming up. Don't know how many of you go to it. I always love trying to get to it if I'm not working. But Frazetta is putting out an anthology, and this was just interesting. This is like sort of censored here. It has some nudity in it. Now, that's fine in and of itself because Frank Frazetta painted sexy paintings. It's not a surprise that there would be nudity in his sort of barbarian fantasy stories, stories based off of his paintings. That's thematically in line with what we know about Frazetta stories, like Death Dealer. What's a little strange is that this is like something that comic book stores can carry on Free Comic Book Day, which is typically a pretty family friendly event and aimed a lot at trying to get new readers or lapsed readers into the store, and they don't have like a warning label or anything on it. Now, I don't love warning labels in general, but all I'll say is I'm putting this news out there so that people that either work at a comic book store or know people that work at a comic book store could be made aware of that, because it does seem like the kind of thing that bad faith people are going to try to complain about. This is not a comic that's aimed at children. I think that any of the comic stores ordering this would know that and not make it available to young kids. But if it all gets lumped in and, it's basically, oh, there was a free Avengers and Batman comic and this one with like a naked lady in it, I just feel like some people are ready to do bad faith arguments. So just sort of throwing that out there so that people are aware. I would say if I was Opus, I might not have included that for such a sort of, for this kind of an event. But, whatever. It is what it is. Yeah. That said, I don't know how many of you have read any of the Frazetta stuff. I took a look at some of it. The covers are gorgeous because they're all based on, or they're all Frank Frazetta paintings, right? That's awesome. The writing is pretty solid. The art, how we'll say, is workmanlike in the issues I've seen. Not bad, but workmanlike. Oh, well, here's a way for Opus to up the ante there. Andy, welcome, by the way, says, I'm doing a non-Frazetta book for Opus, Ziltoid the Omniscient, based on a concept album by Canadian rocker Devin Townsend. Issue 1 came out Wednesday, also a big Frazetta fan. Interesting. I have to admit, Andy, that flew under my radar. I am not aware of Ziltoid the Omniscient, but I am legit an admirer of your artwork. I would love to read that. I'm a Frank Frazetta fan too. You know what's worth mentioning? First, I'll mention this. Thank you, Steve. Super chats, always super, super appreciated. That's really, really nice. I don't usually pick up the freebies. I leave them for new readers and kids. I always hope it gets more readers to the genre that I love. That's admirable. I can totally respect that. Yeah, totally can respect that. I still, when I can, I go in and, partake in the sales, because that's supporting the business. Usually a store will have some sales of some sort when they've got like the Free Comic Book Day, get people to try new things. That's what I try to do. Look into some back issues or a trade, something like that might be on sale. A-Man says Devin Townsend rules, so I guess you should look into Andy's new comic. It flew under everyone's radar. Opus is a smaller publisher, or newer maybe, but so yeah, it's hard to get the word out, but worth mentioning here. Let's see. Hey, hi Daniel, always nice to have you here, man. Yeah, I am also working Black Phoenix, so I don't think I will be able to get to Free Comic Book Day this year either. They have millions of those freebies. Well, maybe it's worth mentioning here. On Free Comic Book Day, the comics that they have available from publishers that are free, those are free for you and I, the general public, the customer. But just so you know, the comic book store does still have to pay something for them. They don't cost as much as a regular comic, but they are not free for the comic book store. That's your comic book store investing in something to bring people in and to create some excitement. But the comic itself does cost your store something. My LCS does 75-cent back issues. Wow, that's fun. That's super fun. My local comic shop is having a 15 to 20% discount. Wow, so people are putting in big sales. Yes, Kevin Street, you just put it very succinctly. It's a loss leader. That is the technical term for it. Appreciate that. I hope that people know about this. I'd hate for a kid to have this in their hands and deter it from comics in their lives. Yeah, I think it's such a fantastic storytelling medium. And as far as Frank Frazetta himself goes, one of my best memories is a day when a bunch of my friends from DC and I made the drive up from like the DC area to the Philadelphia area where Frank Frazetta had an estate. He owned a huge tract of land, huge, with many houses and buildings on it, and you could go there to the Frank Frazetta Museum. Relatively small building, but it was beautiful. It had just dozens and dozens of his paintings hanging up. The day that we went, his wife was running it essentially, and we got to sit down and talk to her, and she just told us about Frank's life and his career. It was a really wonderful day. It was eye-opening, and I just remember it fondly. Hey, I didn't get the notice that the show was going live. Happy to be here. Well, I'm happy to have you. And tell you what, Hooded Cobra Commander's a good buddy of mine. Brian makes a great show. If you are into vintage G.I. Joe, a lot of us grew up on that. I did. I love it. He's reignited my passion for it. Brian just put out an hour-long episode the other day on his channel, Hooded Cobra Commander 788, seen right there, about everything about the history of Cobra Commander. We're talking about the people that created the toys. We're talking about the writers that crafted him in the comics and what they did with him in the cartoons, and an especially long segment talking about the politics of Cobra Commander and how that was definitely all fairly different. You have to remember that when this came out in the early 80s, that was Cold War era. Our easy enemies were always the Russians. Cobra was a terrorist group that were Americans. So that was very different, actually. Great video. I really do recommend it. Even if you're a casual G.I. Joe fan, you're really going to love his latest one. An hour long. It's a great documentary. That's what I think of it as. So just wanted to plug you. I know you weren't asking for it, but I really liked that episode. Let's go back to the news. Okay, come on, mouse. There we go. And my next piece is this. Just sort of cracked me up. Disney is making an actual musical, Rogers the Musical, which if you've watched, the last Spider-Man movie or the Hawkeye TV show, in the background, whenever people were on Broadway, they had this musical. There was an Easter egg, like after credits scene in Hawkeye with a scene from like Rogers the Musical of the Avengers singing and dancing. But they're really making a live action musical that you can see. It's going to launch in Disneyland on June 30th, so this summer. Some of the things that the show will include is Save the City from the Disney Plus series Hawkeye. We've seen that, but now you can see it live. Star Spangled Man from the first Captain America movie. Let's see, and 5 new original songs that were created for Rogers the Musical at the Disneyland Resort originally. Here's like some concept art for a scene from Rogers the Musical. It'll be a 30-minute show. that they have on Tuesdays through Saturdays. So for some reason, not on Sundays and Mondays. Well, I guess if it's a live show, you probably have regular cast members. You need to give them a break. These are real people, like as compared to an animatronic. And here's Disney's little quote about what it is. Let's see. The musical will take the audience on a journey from Steve's humble beginnings during World War II to becoming Captain America, leading the Avengers, and beyond. It's a classic tale of heroes, time travel, and romance. Oh, and Nick Fury sings. So they're having fun with it. I thought that was pretty funny, to be honest. If I was at Disney, yeah, I'd want to see this. Chris, can you sing the Star Spangled Banner? Oh, say, can you see? That's about as good as I can do. Yes, Phantom of the Opera had to be phased out so that Rogers the Musical could live, breathe, and succeed. If only I had this news the week that I released my Comic Tropes episode about the Spider-Man Broadway musical, right? But anyway, it's obviously not a full Broadway show. It's smaller than that. It's 30 minutes. It's like 7 songs. But it sounds fun to me. I think it's funny. There are 2 Frazetta museums now. Frazetta girls operate the Boca Grande, Florida Museum, I believe. I did not know that. Maybe I should have Sarah Frazetta on the show sometime, do an interview and learn about it, because what Sarah and the Frazetta girls are doing to keep Frank Frazetta's memory and his work alive is pretty awesome. Will it be allowed in Florida? The latest is that Florida is not able to set Disney's policies, and that's probably just showboating on the governor's behalf, and he knows that they don't have a lot of control over what Disney does. Yeah, yep. The Edge did do music work for 2 different comic book properties. All right. That just seemed fun, so I wanted to share that. It's more of a little piece of news, but interesting, might be worth talking about. Peacemaker. I thought it was awesome. I liked that show on HBO Max a lot. And it right away got renewed for season 2. But in between that, Warner Brothers Discovery decided they were going to essentially reboot their movie universe, and they hired Peter Safran and James Gunn. These are all things that we know. Well, the latest in terms of when Peacemaker season 2 is coming out is that it will come after this new version of their movie continuity launches. And that's Gunn confirmed that it's happening after Superman Legacy, and we know that that's coming out in 2025. So that's quite a delay until season 2. Presumably it will have the same actors playing the same roles, but in a new continuity. I'm trying to think of something you could compare that to, but in James Bond, when they rebooted everything with Casino Royale, Daniel Craig was now James Bond at the beginning of his career, but Judi Dench stayed on as his boss, M. She wasn't technically the same M that she'd been playing in the last 4 movies, but she was still there playing that character. So it's something like that, I guess. Anyway, here's James Gunn's tweet where he was like responding to someone saying like, what about the 2nd season of Peacemaker? Is it still happening? And he said, yes, after Superman. I thought that was funny. Have I seen Pennyworth or Gotham? No. It's kind of funny how many Batman shows have been made without Batman. But yeah. Oh yeah, it gives you plenty of time to find the first season. I think it's pretty darn good. I really do. I liked it. It would be so weird if the Peacemaker show is in continuity, but the Suicide Squad isn't. I sort of know what you mean there. We'll see what happens. That's an insanely long delay. I'm not sure if most people will still be invested in it by then. It'll essentially be kind of like rebooting the idea, I guess. It's just working with pieces that they know they like to work with. Here's the thing. that's not a huge money investment the same way it would be if they were doing it as a movie. Um, Doing it as a TV show, it's a little bit of a safer bet. You're going to get that investment back with people subscribing to whatever HBO Max is then. He's going to get a suit of armor and be called Pacemaker. That's good. That's good. My pitch is a Yellowstone clone called The Kents that's just a gritty farm drama of Ma and Pa before Clark. Well, you know what? That is a surprisingly strong idea that I could absolutely believe would get greenlit. Not even a joke. Like, I totally believe somebody would consider greenlighting that with the right crew and cast behind it. Because I know how big Yellowstone is. That's right. The Sci-Fi Channel had Krypton. You know, I never did see that, even though I liked the actors that they had as Zod and Lobo, but I just never really got around to seeing any of it. Because you know what? I don't know. Telling the story of Superman or Batman before Batman or Superman is around doesn't really interest me. It's like I could theoretically see these things being done as a single issue of a comic where it's creating some sort of thematic or plot point interest to pay off in an ongoing story later. But, you know, the shows that go on for years and years and years without Batman or Superman kind of annoy me. Yes. The Paste Pot Pete cameo in Peacemaker Season 2. That's right. I'm going to unite the Marvel and DC worlds by doing that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Smallville did have an ongoing comic that they called, you know, Season 11, maybe 12, and so on. I don't know how long that went. I never read that. But yeah, called Smallville, but finally Superman. Didn't Marvel release -1 issues to show the Marvel Universe pre-FF? I don't know. It sounds plausible. I don't remember that. Sounds plausible. I have the Smallville #1 comic. Pastemaker. Yes, Chemdog got that too. Sony should adapt Trouble. Oh, folks. I have considered covering the comic book Trouble before. If you're not familiar, it is a non-superhero story written by Mark Miller with art, if I'm remembering right, by Terry and Rachel Dodson. And you eventually realize that it's the story of Aunt May and Uncle Ben and Ben's sister and her boyfriend, I believe, when they were all like 19, 20 something years old, just all going around having sex and getting pregnant and stuff. No supervillains, just the fear of what to do when you realize you're pregnant but not married yet. What will you do? It wasn't very good. It had photo covers as well. It was bad. It was stunningly bad, actually. Maybe I'll talk about it someday. Yeah, it was called Trouble because those girls got into trouble. The covers are not my favorite. Not my favorite. Yes, there was a time when was it Bill Jemas making these calls? Black Phoenix is listing some of them. Ultimate Adventures. You could argue some of that's good, but Marvel was something he wrote. Offensive as hell. So offensive. So offensive. Someday maybe Comic Tropes could cover that. We'll see. Let's get back to with this is a weird piece of news. Oh my God. How am I even going to talk about it on this show without getting demonetized? Anybody remember these comics? The Ultraverse on the right through Malibu Comics. They were actually pretty popular for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And one of the main books was this one, Prime. It was like the story was there's like a little kid, we're talking like preteen, and he gets access to this weird protoplasm that he can form into a body around his body, and it can look however he wants. So he makes himself into this huge superhero. I think he later got grim and gritty with it. Well, that was written by a guy named Gerard Jones. Drawn, by the way, by the oh, hold on, I'm blanking on the name all of a sudden. I love Norm Brayfogle. Norm Brayfogle, really cool artist, very unique art. Did a lot of great Batman stuff. So Gerard Jones, Gerard Jones wrote, Marvel and DC stuff. I was just putting this here because that's something fairly prominent. Yeah, it's kind of a Shazam idea. It absolutely was. Oh boy, so he was convicted back in 2018 of having images on his computer that you should never have. We're talking images of kids in compromising positions. I'm being careful with my wording here, and I definitely do not want to get into it because it's so icky. It's horrific. It's maybe arguably the worst crime you can commit. And he went to jail for a whole 6 years. Gerard Jones. By the way, this guy was a prominent writer in the industry. The industry has wiped his name off the books as much as it can. We do not talk about Gerard Jones, basically. But according to Bleeding Cool, they found out that he was actually quietly released early on December 30th of 2022. So right at the end of last year. Yikes. Let me cleanse my palate briefly by just acknowledging a super chat. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you very, very, very much. What is your opinion on the current main Spider-Man comic run? I kind of bailed on Amazing Spider-Man because it hinted at something big and epic that was coming, and then it just started dragging its heels with sort of B to C tier level villains having, like gang wars and stuff. And I was just like, it's fine enough, but it wasn't going anywhere. And it really started to annoy me. Yes, he also, just to be clear, wrote a bunch of non-fiction books about comic book history. The kind of stuff I sort of do with my channel, talking about the history of comics. And he wrote the first 2 to 3 years of Wonder Man, which features some gorgeous art by Jeff Johnson. And I don't think Marvel's really overly inclined to reprint that stuff. And it's honestly a pretty cool, underrated series, but nobody wants to give this guy the time of day. So he's written a lot of important-ish comics for Marvel and DC that they just don't want to reprint. Gross, huh? I'm for giving people second chances within reason. I do not want to see this guy get opportunities in the comics field. I'll just say that. There's some things that you got to keep them away from. Yeah. Let's go on to some other crazy news, though. This is kind of hilarious. I'll go with something funny now, okay? Something funny. Yes, a lot of people in the chat commenting about how he did an extended run on Green Lantern. He absolutely did. A lot of you probably read it. On the right of this slide, I've got an image of a comic book called Once Upon a Time, a true story about the miracle molecule, carbon dioxide. What? Carbon dioxide is not, that's what we expel. That's not good for us. Well, it's published by this group down here, the Carbon Dioxide Coalition. Who are they? They are, at best, a fringe scientific group which rejects what almost every scientist in the world believes, which is that carbon emissions are heating up our planet and causing various climate problems. Makes the ice caps melt, and then those super cold winds come down in large chunks at unexpected times, give us massive storms, Could be snowstorms, could be rainstorms. Also makes parts of the world a lot drier. There's more desert growing. It's not really controversial to say this, I don't think. I really don't. There is a massive scientific consensus on this, despite whatever politics you have. If we're just talking scientifically, most scientists agree. But these people are on the other side. They have a comic book here, obviously aimed at kids, talking about how carbon dioxide is actually good for the world. They don't address any of the stuff about global warming. They talk about how plants can absorb carbon dioxide, and they can. Not enough for us, but they can. Well, they went to a convention, or a conference, I should really call it, hosted by the National Science Teaching Association. And the NSTA asked them, look, you can attend this conference, but you can't distribute this kind of material. It's scientifically disproven as far as we are concerned. We're not going to support that. If you keep showing it, we're going to ask you to leave. They refused to stop giving it out, so they were asked to leave. So just a comic book where people are talking about how great carbon dioxide is. Like, yeah, what's next? Carbon monoxide. Breathe it in. It's good for you. Fringe science. It's a miracle. It is a miracle. Is there a scene where they go into a room full of CO2? No, because that would make you dead. That would make you dead. Hate when these types of people put their foot into this medium. It's not fun. If I ever find this comic, I would definitely consider having fun with it on Comic Tropes, but who knows if anyone would want that. You know, if a flat earther wants to make that, that's also kind of bonkers, but I don't think it would generally lead to harm, whereas this one is actively ignoring a problem and trying to just convince people that it's good. It's good. I could understand why some people would want to think that it's good. It's a scary world to think that we have a problem we need to address. Oh, that would have sold things. They should have put Wolverine on the cover. More emissions now. That should be the sequel issue. That should be. I'm all for giving people a second chance too. I just hate that things like this happen and wish that abusive stuff didn't exist. Oh yeah, the last news article. Yeah, pretty bad. Pretty bad. Remember the really old ads actually done as part of a TV show with the stars extolling the health benefits of smoking? Wow, I can remember old animated commercials like Fred Flintstone going like, "Boy, Bond, these Winstons sure hit the spot. Yeah, and most doctors recommend them." But I don't remember a TV show with stars extolling the health benefits of smoking. I believe it, but I don't remember that. Yeah, if they wanted it to sell, put a gorilla on the cover. They could have hired me, and I would have gladly just done my own thing. Gunsmoke. I have DVDs where they advertise cigarettes. Yeah, the old shows definitely advertise cigarettes. There was a time where we just did not necessarily know how bad they were for us. Winston's do the trick, Bon. Carbon dioxide is a gas that contains a lot of oxygen in its chemical composition, but snuffs out fires. Yeah, there are uses for carbon dioxide. It was a good Barney impression. Hey Fred, let's have a smoke. I don't know, is that how he sounds? I haven't watched Flintstone since I was a little kid. I'm just doing it off memory. I want to say it like this. Hey Wilma, I got a lung removed. These Winstons sure are smooth. Anyway. Cigarette companies were major sponsors. They were. We didn't really know better for a while. Good coffee. Let's move on. Here's the news, in my opinion, although now that I think of it, there's some controversy, I suppose, to the overall premise. But I love the artwork of a guy named Kerry Randolph. I think he's made some beautiful contributions to comics. He's worked with Kirkman on some stuff within the Invincible universe. You've seen him work at DC on books like Static. He created an original character at Marvel, and right now that name is blanking on me, but the guy could mimic other superpowers. It was cool. He's done all sorts of stuff. He worked on designs. He got out of comics for a while and worked on the 2003 animated Ninja Turtle show. That was like the second animated show after the original one from the late 80s into the early 90s. Yeah, Carrie's super talented, super talented. His partner Joanne Starer is comic book writer and editor. I just talked about her book, The Gimmick, a few weeks ago on this show. I really enjoyed it. They do a book together on their Substack newsletter called Sirens of the City, and it's coming to print. So for all of us that aren't super involved on Substack, and I definitely count myself among that, yeah, Boom Studios is picking it up and is going to make a print edition. It's set sort of, it's in the 80s. Some of it's in New York, as you can sort of tell with this cover. And the main character has to battle literal monsters to end an unwanted pregnancy. So it was definitely created to be a metaphor that, like, with how fast things are changing in this country, is almost like not as much of a metaphor. But yeah, like that's why it's called Sirens of the City. You know, there are sirens and other monsters. All I can say is I've seen a bunch of it. It's really cool. I'm definitely going to be picking up the print edition. I think it looks awesome. Love me some Carrie Randolph art. He's so talented. Yup, I know. It's definitely, you know, a sensitive topic, but I think it's a fair sort of sci-fi premise to explore. I really did. Did you know Carrie Randolph did the character design for Wolverine and the X-Men? Yeah, that was during his time working at Fox Kids. He's great. Actually, you know, apparently, I know Carrie well because like we were both on Pencil Jack and before that Wizard World together. We've known each other a long time. We're pretty close in age. We're both from Boston, so we know each other decently well. I love Carrie. But he and Joanne apparently just moved to Austria, of all places. I thought that was amazing. Whoa, look at this. I've got somebody from Turkey saying hello. Well, hello, Ismail. Love from Turkey. I always listen to your streams the next day due to time difference. First time watching it live. Thanks for the show. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I'm sure it's very late there. But thank you. That's awesome. That's really cool. Oh, yeah. Carrie did Daughters of the Dragon. Pencil Jack memories. Yes. Thank you, Jamilin. That Mosaic is definitely the character that I was thinking of that wasn't coming to me. Anyway, could be a cool comic. DC has 2 comics coming up from Mark Waid on top of the 2 he's already doing. So he's currently writing geez, I put Superman here in the notes. I did not mean that. He's writing Shazam. We know, well, that's still about to come out, but he's writing Shazam and he's writing World's Finest, the Superman Batman book. But he's creating 2 more books. He's going to write a 3-issue Black Label book for them called Superman Last Days of Lex Luthor, art by Brian Hitch. Love Brian Hitch. I think that sounds interesting. It's really, you know, it's about Lex Luthor's final days and how Superman, even though he despises Lex, Superman values life so much that he's going to like go way out of his way to do everything he can to help Lex Luthor. Pretty amazing potential story, just to show how much Superman tries to do the right thing. And then this really looks interesting to me. Of course, this cover is by Chris Samnee, but Mark Waid is going to write a World's Finest Teen Titans book with artwork by Emanuela Lupacchino. I'm not super familiar with her artwork, I have to admit, but I'm excited to see it. I think that a World's Finest Teen Titans book about their early days could be very fun. Wade does good superhero stuff. Yeah, Mark Waid speed running the entire DC line. That's about right. Lex dies by getting his head stuck in a honey jar. Oh, okay. He wrote Flash for a long time. A lot of people still consider that a high water mark for the character. High water mark, yes. I didn't say Australia. I said Austria. good reference to a meme here. Archmage Frey, yes. Give Lex 40 cakes for his final days. That would be just great. I read that Last Days of Lex is a spiritual successor to Birthright. Okay. That sort of makes sense. Birthright was sort of Superman's origin recapped. I'm back. Had to order a new modem, so I'm watching from my phone. Technology, is it real? Let's be honest. Does you think man will ever walk on the sun? What if he went in the winter when it is well colder? Is anyone interested in The Avengers by Jed McKay? I'm a little interested. That might be a jumping on point that I'll give a shot at and see what I think. Yeah. Hey, Chris, what's the matter? You no talk with your Boston accent no more. Yeah, Boston accent is not a Super Mario accent. I'll make that one clear. What else? Chris, why is non-comic creators so obsessed with making the heroes go evil? Superman is more like Homelander than Superman nowadays. I don't know if you've been reading Dawn of DC. Superman's pretty noble, doing some great stuff. I agree. World's Finest is very, very good right now. Very fun. We got more stuff to talk about. See these two guys on either end here? Probably some of you have, because those are the Raka Raka brothers, Australian twins with almost 7 million subscribers on YouTube. They do stuff like special effects and like short films in addition to other things. This past week, they were having an Instagram live stream. And on it, the brother Danny, and I can't tell them apart. I really don't know their channel. But like Danny said that they met with DC to direct a movie. He says specifically, DC meeting went amazing. They offered us a project, but we decided not to go for it at the moment. We wanted to, yeah, just stick with our original material for the time being. But yeah, we'll see. In the future, you never know. You never know. I'm keen to see what James Gunn does with the universe. I'm excited to see it. And you'd probably be like me, like, that was like about 2 or 3 days of this news being out there. And I'm going like, I mean, these guys don't like have a history of lying, but it just seems weird. Like they have directed like a smaller budgeted movie down in Australia and they do special effects, but it seems like a huge step up to work on a DCU project, like untested. Doesn't seem like the kind of people that they would offer that to. And just for clarification, yeah, James Gunn later clarified, he said this in a tweet. He goes, the Filippos met with some of our execs and maybe discussed the possibility of something, but they never met me and Peter, and DC never offered them a project. Maybe they turned down pitching on something. I think he's trying to give them the benefit of the doubt there, and that there was just some sort of misinterpretation. But yeah, so just pointing that out. No, it wasn't an April 1st joke or anything. I'm shocked that huge YouTube sensation, those guys, apparently didn't get a real offer. Okay. It's borderline irrelevant. If you choose not to do something, that's not announcement worthy. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm talking about the gentleman in the article, not me. Okay, yeah, you're not talking about me. It's okay if you were, but yeah, thank you. Oh, here's a question about something like a little off topic. What did I think of Shazam 2? I didn't think it was too bad. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was fine. It was harmless. It was fairly entertaining for what it was. I didn't feel like my time was being wasted. Am I giving it like, a full-throated endorsement? Clearly not. But I also don't think it was garbage or bad or anything like that. I think that there was probably story opportunities. They could have gone in different directions that might have connected better with audiences is all. So maybe a missed opportunity there. But for what it wasn't too bad. That said, it bombed. And it's even bombing on video on demand. It's doing worse than things like Morbius and Black Adam. So it's not doing well. Yeah, it lacked the rock. We will go on to even more news, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. We're only like halfway through the news. There's going to be a couple new Hellboy comics coming out in July. July 12th. Two new comic books. I love Hellboy. Love Hellboy. Really interesting universe. I like supernatural stuff that's based on actual mythology and just sort of goes in weird directions. Here's one of the books. It's called Hellboy and the BPRD, 1957, subtitle From Below. So it's set in 57. Written by Mike Mignola and Chris Roberson. Artwork by Mike Norton. And the story overall, Hellboy, Professor Brutenholm, the guy that raised him and sort of helped found the BPRD, and BPRD agent Archie Moraro investigate a haunted sawmill. I don't know. Works for me. Here's the other one. It's called Panya, the Mummy's Curse. And so this is set in the world of Hellboy, but this is long, long before Hellboy was around. Again, Mignola and Chris Roberson writing it. Artwork by a guy named Christopher Mitten. If any of you are familiar with him, I'd love to know who that is. I don't really know. It says thousands of years before Hellboy, the BPRD, and Ragnarok, there was Panya. As a girl in ancient Egypt, she witnessed the fall of a dynasty and was gifted or cursed with visions of the beginning, the end, and the coming of the dragon. Don't know what that one is, but I'm up for anything, Mignola. Hellboy Spawn crossover. That could be fun. He crossed over with Savage Dragon. Both of them. I'm good, Joe. Thanks for jumping in. No, Mike, I guess just doing covers for the most part at this point and writing. Not drawing as much these days, but yeah. Oh, thanks for some clarification here, Steve. Mitten, artist of Wasteland from Oni Press. Okay, thanks for the heads up. Something to look into. You're glad it's Monday. I'm glad it's Monday. He crossed over with Batman, and Starman has the best take on Batman. Love Chris Mitten's art. Okay. All right. Apparently, Twitter was briefly, as throttling is a nice way of putting it. Blocking might be another way of interpreting it. Blocking Substack links. A lot of comic creators are making comics on Substack, which is basically a subscription newsletter service. It's a lot like how I use Patreon, and feel free to support my Patreon. I could definitely use the help, but yeah, it's just a way for people to directly support creators that they like. Substack. But on last Friday, a bunch of creators were finding they were getting messages like this, or people just couldn't click on their Substack links. It was saying like the link you are trying to access has been identified by Twitter or our partners as being potentially spammy or unsafe. So it wouldn't let you click on it. For what it's worth, the head of communications at Substack has said that throttling is now over. Why did it happen? I don't know. This is a little conspiracy theory of me, but Elon is taken to obviously meddling very directly in Twitter to do things the way he wants them done. And sometimes he does not understand the long-term ramifications of these quick decisions that he makes. He was having a feud with there's a journalist that used to like do analysis for all sorts of poll numbers, and I'm forgetting his name right now. He was for a long time actually like really tight with Elon, and then he was going to publish something called the Twitter Files, and he was going to start by publishing that on Substack. And so like there's thought that Elon just didn't like him and he blocked Substack, like had his people just do it there. I don't know if that's true or not. It certainly sounds plausible to me. It does. But on the other end of things, The Verge wrote a really big article recently about how they think that Substack is actually losing money. Now, the people in charge of Substack have come back and said, no, we have tons of subscribers. We're doing well. We just got another round of investing. But that's a little telling in and of itself, talking about like another round of investment. It doesn't seem like the actual subscription model is yet self-supporting or self-sustaining. The fact that they have to keep getting the support of another round of investors into their product is they've gone through like I think 4 rounds of investing. That's kind of a lot in the few years that Substack has been around. We'll see. The other reason Twitter may have blocked it is Substack is creating sort of a component of themselves called Substack Notes, where it basically does allow you to essentially post tweets instead of like big posts. You can just like, it's like a social media service within Substack, and it could theoretically be seen as a competitor to Twitter. So they may have temporarily blocked it for that reason. Thanks, Makoto. Yeah, I was talking about Matt Taibbi. That's who I was thinking of. That's who I was talking about. Substack just launched Notes. You got it. Yep. It's Taibbi. Elon paid him to release the Twitter files to his own posting enemies. Taibbi got too big for his britches, and Elon dumped him, killing Substack links in the process. But supposedly they're back. We shall see. I am totally for a competitor to Twitter that's viable. I've tried a bunch of them. Like, I like how Twitter... I can't say how Twitter works now, because I'll be honest, I have a frustrating experience on Twitter these days, although I do have a decent amount of followers, so it's still an okay platform for me to push news out on. I like the idea of a place where people can get like, sort of news and updates in real time, can post jokes and memes, and ideally post links to videos and other content without that sort of penalizing them. But these days, if you post links, it really gets throttled. That is a fact. It's frustrating. Is Substack only paid, or are there free subscriptions? There are both. And a lot of creators will have both paid and free content on their newsletters. But it could be either. It's up to the creator. They get to set their own amount that they think it's worth charging. And some, just to be clear, some of the top creators on that platform are making very good money from it. That is a fact. The Verge article analyzes where some of the money is going. And, there are comic book creators that are doing very well being able to sort of share comics directly to their biggest supporters. So it's an idea I don't think has been perfected, but it's close to a very good idea. It's close. I got excited about this because I'll tell you something. This is an actress that I like the stuff she's done. She's very unique. But Mia Goth has joined the Blade movie. If you haven't seen her, basically within about just over a year's time frame, she was in 3 horror movies that I really liked. 2 of them like set in the same world. She was in X. She was in its prequel Pearl, which she also co-wrote, and she was in Infinity Pool. Very freaky movies. Who's she playing in the Blade movie? That's not confirmed, just to be clear. there's speculation that she could be playing Lilith. Lilith was a very important villain when Blade came back in sort of the 90s with the Midnight Suns branding. They had books for Doctor Strange and Morbius and like Blade and the Night Stalkers. So maybe, Lilith is the daughter of Dracula. She can control a bunch of demons and stuff. We'll see. Could Mia Goth be playing that character? Theoretically possible. It definitely is going to finally go in front of cameras next month. And it got delayed because the star was just like, the script isn't right. Like, it's not right. So they rewrote the script, and because of the delay, also got a different director. Hopefully this delay pays off, and they're coming out with a better product for us next year. Blade is an interesting character. Whoa, look at that super chat. Hey, Chris, can only be here for a sec. You need to read Chroma. I've heard that. It's a 4-issue series that just finished up with amazing story and art from Lorenzo De Felici. It's such a beautiful comic. You'll love it. Lorenzo De Felici was the artist on the Robert Kirkman book Oblivion Song, and they're working together on this upcoming book, Void Rivals, which is supposedly part of some connected universe. Does that mean connected to something like Invincible or something? I don't know yet. Don't know. Marvel has 2 Liliths. Oh, shoot. You're totally right. They do, don't they? There's, and maybe I'm showing an image of the wrong Lilith, because there's Lilith, the daughter of Dracula, and there's Lilith, the first demon who gave birth to like all these sort of weird demons throughout the Marvel universe. And I think I'm showing the Lilith that was the first demon. Oh, I think I made a mistake. I totally forgot, but R0X is right. Marvel does have 2 Liliths. I forget the exact date, but Firepower is coming back from its hiatus in like a month or 2. It's coming out like by this summer. Anyway, she's actually playing Lilith from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Didn't see it. What is the worst comic film adaptation? The worst. Boy. There's some that are bad, but they're kind of funny because they're bad. Like, they're still entertaining. So I'd say like the worst would be one that's more like boring bad. And I'd say something like, like Catwoman was pretty boring. That was a pretty bad one. The Elektra movie was pretty bad. I don't know. I'll leave that up to everybody. Yeah, the demon Lilith was in Midnight Sun, so that'd make sense from a synergy standpoint. But Drax's daughter also makes perfect sense, and that's how I somehow mixed them up together. The Spirit. That's a pretty bad one. That is a pretty bad one. I'm showing Demon Lilith, but that one was in the Blade Ghost Rider Dark Sun. Yeah, exactly. She was. But it does make a little more sense that it could be Dracula's daughter, I bet, in a movie. Yeah. I totally forgot that there were 2 Liliths when I just grabbed an image. I just put in Marvel Lilith and I remembered it, from the 90s. So I was like, yeah, that's Lilith. I totally forgot that there are 2. Which is a little confusing in retrospect, but whatever. Speaking of like casts for, projects by Marvel and DC, we already knew there was going to be an animated Creature Commandos movie for, or I think TV series now that I think of it, for the DCU, one of the earliest projects. Well, they announced a bunch of the cast. Frank Grillo, he played Crossbones in some of the Marvel movies. He's going to be Rick Flag Sr., so this is set in the past. Rick Flag, you may remember, Rick Flag Jr., technically, leader of Suicide Squad field operations. Sean Gunn will do double duty. He'll play Weasel, a character that he did technically voice in the Suicide Squad. He'll also voice G.I. Robot, pretty cool character. David Harbour, from Stranger Things and a million others, Hellboy, playing Eric Frankenstein. Alan Tudyk playing Dr. Phosphorus. He does good voice work, actually. Alan Tudyk, that's a solid cast. Indira Varma as the bride. Maria Bakalova as Princess Ilana Rostovich. Maria was in the last Borat movie and voices Cosmo the dog in the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So that probably accounts for how maybe like James Gunn was like, yeah, hey, I want you to do another voice. Zoe Chow as Nina Mazursky, and Steve Agee will return from his role as John Economos from the movies and like, Suicide Squad and such. But anyway, it's kind of a fun cast. Yes, exactly. These people might play the parts again if the Creature Commandos appear in live action. And I think that like a bunch of these could stay as voice roles, like Dr. Phosphorus and GI Robot and Weasel. A lot of these are characters that are going to, if they were in live action, would probably be a mix of, either prosthetics or CG, things like that. So they could definitely get them to continue to play these roles if they go into live action. How is the guy wearing how is the fire? He's not technically on fire. He's not technically on fire. I forget Dr. Phosphorus's exact powers. He hasn't been in comics in a minute. If I had a producer, I'd be like, pull me up the Wikipedia page for Dr. Phosphorus. So anyway, Section 8, but for PG audience movie. Interesting analogy there. Interesting analogy. Frank Grillo is definitely having a moment. I think he had a good moment when he was in that second Purge movie. I would actually say that the second Purge movie was fairly decent. He was pretty good in that one. And that was like right after he'd been Crossbones. So that I think that might have been more of his peak, but he's still doing all right. That art reminds you of Atomic Robo. I can see that. Yeah, I can totally see that. If he touches you, you die. Chris, have you heard the news about an upcoming Stardust the Super Wizard anthology? Yeah, I mean, I know the guy that's putting it together, and I know he got like a bunch of what is it? Van Jensen is putting it together. At one point, he listened to a pitch from me, but I guess he got a bunch of top tier creators, so I don't think I'm going to be able to contribute after all. But I'd still be interested in reading it. There's been a manga banned from Florida, shocker, and Wisconsin schools. But when you start to learn a little bit more about it, it's knee-jerk stuff, knee-jerk reaction stuff. Some of you may know this from either the anime, there's actually even been a live-action movie version of it, or reading the manga, which is what we're here to talk about, comics. It's called Assassination Classroom. Here's the thing that gets overlooked in all the news articles about it. Assassination Classroom is humorous. It's a satire in many ways. What's the story? There's this large tentacled monster, incredibly powerful. He comes to Earth and destroys like 3/4 of the moon. And then he tells Earth that he's going to destroy it in a near point in the future unless some students that he will teach as a teacher, if they can kill him before that time. So he works as like their teacher, and he's teaching them among like all sorts of school stuff, but also assassination. And these outcasts and misfits are all put into like this program, and they are constantly trying to kill their teacher because otherwise he's going to destroy the world. Clearly that's comedic. It is not, but we're talking about killing a teacher? Oh no. Well, these people that are normally on the side of, hey, just give everybody a gun and like what happens, are also against the idea of this book being out there. And I'll just say that, I used to own guns. I don't have a problem with people owning guns personally, within certain limits. I think that there are reasonable limitations there. But books, nobody has ever accidentally killed somebody with a book. I'll just say that. That's to me the difference. And yet, what's the thing that gets banned more easily? Books and comics. Well, it was removed from the digital library in Wisconsin. Okay, that's not quite the same as actually pulling the physical copies out of the book. It's just saying like, hey, we're not going to make this easily available on our digital library. That one, I'm sort of like, I don't agree with it, but I'm also probably not going to put up the world's biggest fight on it. But it also got pulled out of the same Florida high school that we talked about the other week that pulled out Anne Frank's diary that had been made into a comic book adaptation. Again, because of Moms for Liberty. This is just like a super right-wing organization that's trying to ban all sorts of books that they don't like. They said, no, we can't have Assassination Classroom in the school library, and it's been banned. Yeah, good point here. It ended 6 years ago. This is not a brand new manga. It's been out for quite a while. Yeah, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, exactly. It's been done before. When people want to ban a book from you, you should be very curious about what could be in that book that scares somebody. You should be very curious. Books arm kids with knowledge, which these nut jobs are allergic to. I just feel like, it's satire. It's clearly a joke. I don't think anyone thinks that there are actual octopus aliens that are teaching our children. I don't know. What else is there to say? I'm at a loss for words as I think about it. I don't see the harm that's going to come from this book. I sincerely don't think the people that would read this book are going to get influenced by this book to get a gun and shoot someone. Although, if it was going to happen, it's probably going to happen in Florida because of how easy it is. I will just say that. So maybe they should be a little nervous about that compared to, say, I don't know, Washington State or Massachusetts or something like that. But yeah. So kids in all those high schoolers in Florida that were going to get negatively impacted by reading some funny manga, don't worry. Your mom's watching out for you. But here's a nice thing to contrast it with. I think another hilarious manga these days is Spy Family. I think it's great. I think it's really, really funny. And I am not alone. The Japan Cartoonists Association announced the winners of their 52nd Japan Cartoonists Association Awards this past Monday. And Tatsuya Endo's Spy Family won the grand prize in the comic book division. So that entitled him to a medal, a plaque, and 500,000 yen, which 500,000 in probably ballpark in dollars, US dollars, $3,800, $3,700, something like that. Yeah, somewhere close to that. But anyway, just nice that it got recognized. I think it's great. Apparently, Kevin Street agrees with me. Yeah, remember when Mouse got banned? I definitely do. Someone should sneak EC Comics into their library. That's a good idea. Now I really want to read this book. Yes. As a former bookseller, I can confirm that this will fortunately boost sales of the book at least, even though book banning is inherently scary. It is because of like what the path that it could set, the precedent that it could set. But you are right. Generally, when a book is banned, Barnes & Noble is like, cool, we don't have a rule against that. Here's our like banned book table, and that stuff sells well. That sells well. Save those kids once again. Thanks, Florida. The next time there is a school shooting in Florida in a school. We should check to see what books were banned and see if it did anything to slow down that tragedy. Wait, is that true? That one I didn't know about. Bone has been banned in some schools? I don't see what you could object to about Bone. Like, I sincerely don't see I don't think it's like sexual. I don't think it's overly violent. I don't think it's like religious. It is fantasy. I mean, there's conflict, but any good story will have that. I'd have to look that one up. I've never heard about Bone being banned, but it could be, but I just haven't come across that. This is a way more political episode than I expected, but this is just the news that's coming out, and some of it's crazy. Here's something to cheer you all up. Nicki Minaj. This is not nudity. She is covered up. She's covered up. Nicki Minaj, she's going to do a voice in a comic book adaptation. This is a Dark Horse comic. Technically, it was more of like a two-part story in a Dark Horse anthology. It's called Lady Danger by Alex DeCampi, Mulele Jarvis, and Marissa Louise. It's an Afrofuturist comic. It's set in not super far in the future, 2075. This government agent here, she's left for dead and resurrected as Lady Danger, Agent of Booty. By the way, that's the Bureau of Organized Terrorism Intervention, and she's tasked with saving the world. So Nicki Minaj is going to voice the character. It's going to be a free show animated on Amazon. The Frazetta image was more censored. Well, that was complete nudity. She's wearing clothes. No, not super familiar. Not super familiar. I feel like Ifwa Richardson said she designed characters or something. Really? It must be Sweeps Week on YouTube to show this. I'm allowed to show it and monetize it. Am I reading Zeb? Yeah, I talked about this earlier. I was, and it was just moving too slow for me, so I bailed a few months ago. So yeah. I don't think you need an account to watch it. No, I think that they're just going to make this an animated show that's available. But, it's based on a comic produced by 50 Cent. So, you guys are probably all massive 50 Cent fans, if I had to guess. 50 Cent is cool. Anyway, thought I'd share that. Thanks for showing up, Nikki. Appreciate your service. Here's a big one. This was big news this week. There's a new publisher out there for comics called Distillery. And they made quite a splash in terms of what they're trying to do, who's working with them. I've got a lot to say about it. So it's called Distillery, spelled like this. It's kind of like if they were a license plate, a vanity license plate. If you can read this, I cut out all my vowels. It's a new creator-owned comics publisher, and it was founded by some people that were prominent within ComiXology. We're talking David Steinberger. He was one of the 3 co-founders of ComiXology, and Chip Mosher was ComiXology's head of content. 2 guys that definitely know comics, know digital comics, created some great stuff. I don't blame them for what Amazon has done to the ComiXology app. They created some good stuff. I think that said, they do have a few weird ideas with Distillery that I will critique in a moment, but they've got some good elements too. And I want to give fair shake to both. First of all, it was founded to print comics. Supposedly they'll be printed slightly oversized compared to what we're used to, but they are definitely doing print editions of comics. They also have some digital editions. The rules for that are funky. But listen to some of these founding creators that they've got. Brian Azzarello, Scott Snyder, James Tynan, Ram V, artists like Mirka Andofolo, Elsa Charretier, Lee Garbett, Jock, Jamie McKelvey. These are some really talented people. These are some talented people, no question. Here's where it gets a little weird, though, okay? Their digital books, first of all, they've made it clear that they are not NFTs, okay? They are not trading these on the blockchain, but they're trying to create artificial scarcity with the digital version, as in they'll make it for sale for, say, and they haven't locked in all these rules yet, but I'm going to just like focus on me for a minute because there's not really a graphic there to speak to. They're saying like, okay, say Wednesday the new comic comes out. You'd be able to find that in your comic book store. Same morning, you can now buy it online through their app or website, Distillery. And you can only buy it there. But here's the thing you can do. They'll limit the number of digital copies that they sell and have some sort of mechanism for protecting it. It's not NFTs, EJ De Jesus. Let me explain sort of what they're doing differently there. You can't trade it on the blockchain. It is not a non-fungible token. It is literally a digital comic, just like you would download on ComiXology or a similar app like Marvel Unlimited. But they'll only sell so many copies, okay? On top of that, you could then resell your copy if somebody wanted to get that digitally, and you can basically set the price. But out of that, the original creators would get a portion of that sale. Whatever it goes for on the Distillery site, the original creators would get a portion of that. It's an interesting idea. I don't know how functional that will be. They compared it to drop culture. Like where people line up, they said, to get, like, say, new sneakers or a Supreme piece of clothing. I don't think that that's a very good analogy, though. This is where I sort of have the problem with it. Is if I get a limited piece of clothing, I can literally, first of all, benefit from wearing that, and other people will see it and sort of be jealous because, hey, I got this thing. How are you showing off that you have a digital comic? You know, like, who do you show that to? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand really the benefit of creating the artificial digital scarcity, with the exception of the fact that you could then resell it. Okay, that does create, like, a certain number of copies and create some level of collectability, but I don't think it's the same as physically hunting for a comic and like going through, the back issue bins at conventions and new comic book stores and stuff. That's a much different experience than just, oh, I'll go online and see if it's for sale today. Give me an alert when it is. It's not the same. So I don't love the idea of the digital scarcity. Since that hasn't necessarily launched yet, I would just push back and put this out there that, guys, I don't think that's the best part of your plan. I'm glad that you said that you have no interest in doing NFTs. I think that is just, not a great idea. I respect the idea that out of these sales, the creators get a portion of that sale if it was resold, but I don't understand the point, really. I just don't. So I don't think it's fun. I think you're trying to create something fun within it and something different, and I respect that. But I'd counter, to me, as a comic book reader who reads both digital and print edition comics, that doesn't sound that fun to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people do love the idea of being able to, like, have a digitally scarce version of the comic. I don't know. Remember comics? Back in POG form. I am completely jealous of that Godzilla sweater. I mean, I don't get anything for this, but it's Teddy Fresh. You can order it there. They are doing a collaboration with Godzilla. I got another one too. And yeah, this is This is a nicely stitched sweater that like has the Gojira katakana and a nice outline, and I just like the color block style. It's vibrant. I like it. I like reading my comics in my hands. I prefer trade paperbacks, and it makes me feel like I'm a kid again, and it is pure escapism. I wonder how Distillery will do. Well, just to be clear, they are saying that they will do print versions as well. So maybe it doesn't matter how well or not does. They're still doing comics. These guys, I'm sure, will be able to create an easy to use reader. They've got the ComiXology background, and ComiXology had the best digital reader. So anyway, what's this say? Hold on. Use code Comic Tropes to have the website tell you code invalid. Okay. Anyway, I'll add that back. So it's still a lot of big creators that are on board this thing. They've got incentive to get like, depending on how well their sales are, they can get like a percent of how well the overall company is doing. It does not sound like it's going to be the same deal that Image has. I will say that. I still think Image is probably going to have the best overall deal for owning 100% of your creation and getting 100% of the profits minus the same flat fee, no matter how big it sells. Whereas Distillery seems to still be looking to make money somehow. So there's a difference there. Okay, hold on. Where does that "they're back in Pog form" thing come from? It comes from an early Simpsons episode where Milhouse brags to Bart that he's got Alf Pogs. He's like, Alf is back in Pog form. I did not see this, MF. A James Stokey Godzilla Deluxe Edition collecting all his Godzilla work. I'm down, man. That sounds great. Got a few more pieces of news. Here's a kind of interesting one. DC's doing an event, but only for like 2 months. Just sort of a quick summer thing. It sounded fun to me, though. It's called Night Terrors. In July and August, like every book will do like a 2-issue thing of this, and there's going to be a 4-issue limited series sort of explaining the overall event. Written by Joshua Williamson, art by Howard Porter, and it's going to introduce some sort of new villain that torments all the heroes with their worst fears. We can obviously see that Joker's worst fear is having a very mundane call center job. I found that kind of funny. I also like that this Night Terrors cover here is kind of a clever homage. There's a weird cover where Batman and Superman are up here, and who is it? Like Robin and Jimmy Olsen are being forced to dig their own guns, and Superman's like, I have a rule against killing, so if you don't do it fast enough, Batman here will take care of it. And Batman has a gun. And I was always like, but Batman also has a rule about not killing. Anyway, so they swapped it out to put Batman and Superman digging the graves and like these villains hovering over them. That's a funny homage. That's a funny homage. Scarecrow with extra steps. You know what? But like, if you're at all curious about this, Google it. Some of the covers they've created are very, very inventive. There's some great looking covers for a lot of different series. It looks like it did spark a lot of artists' imagination to say, like, how do I capture the idea of this character's biggest fear in one image? That's a good challenge. I like that as an artistic challenge. That's all. Yo, I love Berserk. One of my favorite manga. It's not for everybody because of how dark it is, but volume 42 is the next volume that will be coming out, created by the late Kentaro Miura's best friend, Koji Mora, is writing. And Miura's art assistants, Studio Gaga, are drawing it. But this is kind of cool. If you pre-order Volume 42 in Japan, you get this free Guts statue. Well, yeah, more of a bust, really, because it's like from the waist up. This is Guts in his Berserker armor, and you get that free. And I went to this website, slowly translated it, and yeah, if you go through Good Smile Company, it's by Max Factory, who does some high-end action figures and statues and stuff. The thing that blocked me was you can only have it delivered to a address in Japan. They don't ship overseas. So if I end up with like, a viewer or something that lives in Japan that's okay with me shipping it there, I think I'd like to buy that version, because I'd kind of like this statue personally. And some of you might be big enough Berserk fans that you'd want to do it too. You get Volume 42 again in Japanese, and it was like 7,990 yen, which really, it's not that much, really. I don't think that's that much. So just thought it was worth putting out there for really big Berserk fans. Have you heard of Bai, Chris? No, I don't know what that is. Bai can help with that import issue. Oh, okay. Well, I'll look into it. I've never heard of that. Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable price for both, like, the manga and a statue. I think that's nice. Bai. Wow, a lot of you know about this. I've never heard of this. Huh. Are you going to order the statue to a Japanese address and travel to Japan to get the statue? I mean, I am going to Japan in September, but I don't know if it would overlap with when this actually comes out. So maybe I was thinking I'd pay the shipping, but maybe this Bai thing works. Yeah, proxy shipping services. Oh, okay. I guess a bunch of you know about this stuff. I do not. Yeah, I do agree. A lot of the Berserk figures are really expensive for us here. That's something I'm going to look for when I go in September. When I go to, like, say, Mandarake or something, I'm going to see if maybe I could get like one of the nice Guts action figures at like a more reasonable price. We'll see. But I wanted to mention it for big fans like me. So I've got two last pieces of news, and we'll do this one, right? I mentioned a little bit of this at the top of the show. You may have seen this news because it got shared on all sorts of, not just comic book news sites, but any sort of nerdy genre news site, all across social media. There was news this week that One Piece had a test screening that went disastrously, and that people were complaining about bad CG and an uneven tone. Well, that report came from a Twitter account called Divinity Seeker, and they do a bunch of Hollywood insider news and rumors. That's where it all came from, although that wasn't being reported very well, that like it all came from this one source. Well, this afternoon, Greg Warner, who actually works with Shueisha on One Piece, he's a translator, he said that report is completely false and that there has not been a test screening, so these complaints are actually incorrect. And so once he said that, and this was like, honestly, I only came across this piece a couple hours before starting the show today. I'd seen this complaints about One Piece for the last couple days online. A lot of places reporting it. But I look back, and Divinity Seeker definitely has gotten things wrong before. That more recently, they were talking about like a Harley Quinn movie that James Gunn debunked. He shot it down. He said, like, no, that isn't accurate. So I think what happened here is that it was very easy to believe. So most websites didn't bother looking for confirmation. They just took that report and passed it on. And I'm probably guilty of doing that too. I don't, I'm doing a weekly fun live stream and just riffing on the news that I see. I'm not trying to like fact check this stuff a lot of the times. I want to be as accurate as possible, but I'm not a newspaper. So I'm just riffing on stuff. But hey, I mean, Netflix made a Death Note live action adaptation. They made a Cowboy Bebop live action adaptation, and neither was very good. So it felt very believable, plus One Piece is just it's a beloved, and it's also hugely epic. So the idea of translating this into live action, let alone for a different sort of audience, there's a lot of pressure there. And I think a lot of people found it very easy to believe that it was not, that it had bad test screenings. That's a good point too, infamous Mike Manhattan. Even if it is a bad test screening, that does not necessarily mean it's bad, and that those viewers are right. And you give 7 is a great example. Would I wear a Berserk Behelit necklace? No, I'd be too scared. Has there ever been a good live action adaptation of a manga? Probably. Well, I would say that there has been, first of all, good Japanese live action adaptations of manga. We were talking earlier, Assassination Classroom. I think that did well. I personally like the live action 2-part movie that adapts Death Note from Japan. I like that. So yeah, there have been good live action adaptations. Has there been a good American adaptation of a manga? Even then, yes, I think that you could argue it. What was there was that Tom Cruise movie where he kept coming back to life, and one of the names for it was Live, Die, Repeat. I'm forgetting the other name of it. Technically, that was originally a Japanese short novella that was then turned into a manga, but that is still an adaptation, and I would say that one was pretty badass. Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow is what it was. Battle Royale was again a Japanese live action adaptation of a book that was then turned into a manga, and I thought that was very good. Right, the original story, Mango Do is pointing out, All You Need Is Kill. That was turned into Edge of Tomorrow, and I think it was pretty great. Guyver, yeah. Guyver, not so much, but Guyver 2 is actually kind of fun for what it is. Yeah, Old Boy. I don't think, I think that the American version adaptation of Old Boy, not good. But the original movie, Old Boy, very good. And that was based on a manga. You know what? Good point. A bunch of you just listed this. Battle Angel Alita. I did not expect that to be good. I watched it on an airplane. Actually, I think I watched it on an airplane going to Japan. I had time to kill. And you know what? It was pretty good. It was pretty darn good. So yes, there have been a few. Oh, some people, yeah. Speed Racer can have different opinions, but a lot of people do love it. I know that Robert Kirkman, it's legit like one of his favorite movies. He loves it. And yeah, it's pretty fun. So there are some examples, actually. There are some examples. In other words, if they have the right people behind it, maybe One Piece could still be good. Maybe, okay? I'm just trying to be positive there. By the way, thank you very much, Magic K. The French live-action City Hunter is quite good. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, have there been bad ones? Oh my God, there have been many bad ones. No question. No question. But there are, if we think about it carefully, yeah, there have also been a few good ones. There have been a few good ones. So we'll see. All that is to say, if you see these news items this week about test screenings that went disastrous, they're not real. They're not real. Last piece of news that I have, and then I want to talk about some of the comics that came out this week. But there was a rumor that the YouTube channel Everything Always reported on. Could be full of shit, but honestly, could be real too. I actually believe this is super super likely. I'll say it that way. We know we're getting Deadpool 3. We know that Deadpool 3 will involve time travel, that Mobius from Loki is in it. We know that Hugh Jackman is returning as Wolverine. I think we also have confirmation that Patrick Stewart is coming back as Professor X from that continuity as well. And it's going to involve Deadpool doing time travel and alternate like dimension traveling and coming into the MCU. Will this ultimately be the MCU's Deadpool? I would say probably not, but he is going to legit enter the Marvel universe that we know now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the rumor is that since Wolverine's in it, he'll go up against the Hulk. It does make a bunch of sense when you think about it. I mean, Wolverine debuted in the pages of The Incredible Hulk. They have a classic rivalry. This is probably their Marvel's last and best chance to put together a super popular version of Wolverine against a pretty popular version of the Hulk. And a version of the Hulk that they could arguably do pretty much digitally. They could have it be the Savage Hulk and might not even really need Mark Ruffalo to do much, if anything. So I think that is possible. Even though there's really not a lot to back that up, it is just a rumor. Take it with a grain of salt. Could be real though. And you know what? For like just say one cool scene where the heroes are trying to get somewhere and something that blocks them is all of a sudden it's the Hulk. That could be a really fun scene, I think. I think that could work. What, has Chris not read Skull-Faced Bookseller? I've never even heard of that. Well, knowing Ryan Reynolds, maybe they'll get all three. But who knows? There's also a rumor that like this Wolverine would be running around in his yellow suit finally. Who knows? Who knows if that's accurate or not? Could be fun. Here's another person saying Skull-Faced Bookseller is awesome. I've never even heard of that. Savage Hulk is the best Hulk. I think we've done what we need to do with Professor Hulk. I think we do need either like Joe Fixit Gray Sneaky Hulk or Savage Hulk, something like that. We need that. We need that. Wow, a lot of people saying that this, I've never even heard of it. It's great. Skull-Faced Bookseller is a manga about the real-life experiences of someone who worked in a comic section of a bookstore in Tokyo. I'm interested. I love the book. I love the manga Bakuman about creating a popular manga. I love it. So we shall see. We shall see. Let me change something up here. I'm going to add this. Going to remove this. Going to change this. And I'm just going to briefly give some recommendations out of what we've got here. But apparently I missed something. Hold on. I missed. Oh, boy. Yep. Thank you. My family is on top of this if I miss something. I read comics in digital form before I came to the US, where I live. I don't have other ways to purchase the comics. A great point. Some people like to read digital comics because it takes up less space, or they just prefer that experience. But some people get it because that's the only way they really have to get it. So yeah, digital comics. Which is part of why I don't think artificial scarcity is a good way to go. I think you're cutting out some potential market there. I would say instead of creating artificial scarcity for a small number of digital things, find a way to make it, you could sell many, many copies easily. I lived through the days when we all started just stealing music with programs like Napster. And then iTunes came around and was like, initially like 99 cents for a song. And it was just so easy that everyone was like, yeah, sure. 99 cents a song is completely fair. It's an easy way to get the music that I like. And it became like a very easy default way to get music for a long time. Now I think a lot of people stream, but you know, I still use iTunes. And I think that if comics could find a way to price digital comics affordably, I think that they'd sell a lot of copies. I really do. All right. So, yeah, didn't get any kitty visitors yet. Amen. However, my kitties have been very snuggly with me today. Before I put this shirt on, because it's a little cold in here, Chrissy got me a fantastic sort of bowling shirt like I used to wear on the comic Tropes show all the time, but it's all done in a brown leopard pattern. When I hold the cats, it's like we look alike. And I think that they legit like the look of it. I think that they legit like the look, and they just were coming up next to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Some comics, and I don't have time. Like, we want to like try to end the show at a good time because I have an errand to do for my wife that I promised I would do. But I do want to talk about some of the comics that came out this week. Fantastic Four is a really enjoyable comic right now. And if you haven't read it before or aren't reading it, good news, easy place to jump on. So far, each issue, while it has like, continuing character elements, has been, each story is self-contained. And we're really focusing on the family dynamics, and we're really focusing on a sci-fi problem for the group to solve. In this particular case, the team has to deal with a problem of a killer algae that like grows very, very fast and isn't something that fish could eat. So if it took over, it would kill off the ecosystem. Fish and turtles and stuff would die, and so on and so forth. It would create this huge ripple effect, like that would be really, really dangerous. So they have to figure out how to get rid of all this algae that is spreading very fast. And the idea they come up with is so clever. And this is why I like this book. They're coming up with clever new ways of the Fantastic Four to use their powers. They have Invisible Woman make the sun invisible over several states, but they have to have the sun invisible for about 3 days straight over just a specific area, which is something she can do. She can block light. That's her powers. And if she can block the sunlight, that algae will die off, and then the Fantastic Four can just reintroduce good, positive algae into those areas. But it means that Invisible Woman has to stay awake for 3 straight hours, like in the Fantastic Car in orbit, so that she can sort of see the sun and block it over this certain area. So her brother goes up with her to just keep talking to her and keep her awake. It's a really fun and like the Fantastic Four that's left on Earth is just sort of trying to calm people down and tell them, hey, sorry that this weird thing has happened. We're doing this to save you. But people are naturally a little scared because they're not getting any sunlight. It's not enough to cool the whole planet or even cool that area yet, because you've got like Reed Richards talks through this. He's like, okay, actually, we've got a lot of heat from the core of the Earth, and we're not blocking out the sun for the whole planet. We just need to block the light out so that this algae dies off within 72 hours. Really fun book, people. Really fun. That's a clever little sci-fi premise to have the team deal with. And I'm not giving everything away, but it's really cool. It's really cool. We got the final issue of 8 Billion Genies. Premise being that everybody in the world gets a genie with one wish. And a lot of those wishes conflict and cancel each other out. And each issue jumped forward in time. 8 minutes, 8 hours, 8 days, months, years. Now we're dealing with the last 8 centuries. And this issue just sort of explains a little bit of who the genies are and what they're doing. And how they're there to sort of, one of them lives his life as a human for thousands of years to try to understand them and see if humanity can come up with a nice wish. Because once humanity comes up with the perfect wish, it all ends. But if they don't come up with the perfect wish, life restarts and everything goes for like, some millennia Again, a really interesting sci-fi premise about the nature of it and what people would do with wishes. If you are into Godzilla, cool. This is The Giant Kokuju by Jerry Duggan and is it Steve Koblish? I think. Need to remember the artist's name. Scott Koblish. My bad. But this is a darkly humorous book because Kokuju, unlike Godzilla, is a pretty horrible beast. As in, he's a beast. He's an animal. He poops on the city of San Francisco and smears his butt on the ground. And if that humor offends you, this book is not for you. If you found that funny, the idea of how horrific it would be if a Godzilla-sized monster was acting like an actual animal, The Giant Kokuju might be for you. I found it funny. But it might not be for everybody. Dark Ride was pretty good. I don't want to recap everything about it, but I do like this book. Ambassadors 2, I think I liked more than Ambassadors 1 story-wise, although the first issue did have the artwork by Frank Quitely. I'll always love Frank Quitely's artwork. This is by Carl Kerschel, though. And in this story, there's a lady that's a scientist from South Korea that has come up with a way for superpowers to be introduced to people, but only for 6 people. And she's trying to decide who's worthy. And in this, she chooses a very average guy who works at a phone store in a mall in India. And it's about him being like why he's chosen and what he does with powers and stuff like that. And of course, how the rest of the world, politicians, billionaires, governments, military, they all want access to this stuff, and it's curious to see which way it will go. Noctera, again, really good world building in a world without the sun. That's a lot to recap, though, but I do like this book a lot. Sci-fi horror, sort of Mad Max world without the sun. Danger Street, man, good luck, Chris, summarizing this. This is issue, is it 5? I think it's issue, it's issue 5. This has so many characters in it because Tom King took 13 different comic books that were introduced in something called DC Special #1 that would each issue would introduce a new character. We're talking, some of them were characters that we knew, like Manhunter or the Green Team. No, Green Team was new at that. No, Green Team wasn't new. That was there were new characters like Lady Cop. There were old characters like the original Starman. There were new characters like Warlord. 13 different characters, though, right? And he's making a book where all 13 of them interact and cross over in this hugely convoluted, but in a good way, story. The Green Team are these 4 billionaire kids that like just get their way and do everything. There's a great argument here between the guy who plays the Creeper and Batman about the ethics of what Batman does and how he's perceived by people, like what areas of the world he protects. It's a good argument. Anyway, it's crazy though. Oh, here's one that's cool. This is simple. Did I say something different? First issue special to say if I did not say that. Thank you for the police lady isn't new. She absolutely was new in first issue special. I did an episode about it. First issue special introduced a bunch of new characters. Tom King is taking those characters that were introduced in the 70s in first issue special and putting them all together in one story, even though they're all from wildly different genres and backgrounds. Danger Street is absolutely accessible if it's all you're reading. You do not need to read any previous DC comics to understand Danger Street. It introduces and explains the characters in a new context in this. Okay, so it's its own thing. Radiant Black has the two main characters are best friends that share the Radiant Black powers, right? And all they know is it's alien in nature and that there's going to be this coming alien invasion. But they think it's like months or years away. It happens in this issue all of a sudden. So now these guys have to go up against like an invading army of massive giant robots that they don't understand what they want. It's pretty cool. So it's going to be a sort of a big epic storyline. Really kicks off here in issue 23. No crossovers or anything. The cool thing about the Radiant Black shared universe is every story stays within its own title. Even though it's a shared universe, they do not cross over with each other. I got the latest issue of Slam Dunk. This was a manga that came out in the 90s by Takehiko Inoue, who a lot of people will best known for Vagabond. But I love this. It's funny. It's exciting. It's about a high school basketball team. It's paced so fast. I fly through these. But because it came out so long ago, it can be really hard to find some of these issues. So I had to wait like over a month for this one to be delivered. But I do recommend it very strongly. What else? I don't really have a whole lot else to say. Clear is an interesting sci-fi concept that has technology where people can see the world however they choose to see it. Like you could live in a world that looks like Star Wars or World War II or whatever. That's just how you're perceiving it. It's got a main character who's a detective working to sort of undo that. It's a little bit like Deckard in Blade Runner. But I don't care for the main characters quite as much as that, I will admit. And I also got the latest issue of Nemesis, but haven't had time to read it. It just wasn't a priority for me. Yeah, I know Slam Dunk is out in its entirety, but it's not every issue is easy to get. Not every issue is easy to get is all. Is Radiant Black kind of like Ben 10? I've never seen Ben 10, so I don't really know. I'm sorry, I don't know. Is it comparable to Invincible? Asks Miguel. If you're talking about Radiant Black, in a lot of ways, yes. It's got young protagonists. It's its own universe. It's still superheroes. And it deals with them like, having real world problems as well. Radiant Black, even though it's sci-fi, might be slightly more grounded and a little less jokey sometimes, but it's good. It's really good. That was everything I had to go over, though, folks. A lot of crazy news this week, and I know it was a little more political than most of my episodes, but that was just the news that was coming out. Certain things were banned. Crazy stuff all around. Out of what I read this week, so the ones that I would probably give my highest recommendation to, I'm just going to grab them real quick for just this week, not like overall or anything. 8 Billion Genies. If this gets collected into a trade paperback and you haven't read it, read it. That's great. Fantastic Four. If you've never read Fantastic Four before, that's fine. This is a great jumping on point. You can see what makes it fun. Danger Street is a very weird but cool idea. Radiant Black is good superhero stuff where you don't have a whole lot of history either. This is issue 23, so that's less than 2 years of stories to catch up on. And Slam Dunk. Fantastic. I'm not really too into basketball, but this book is exciting and hilarious. Chemdog says that the Captain America Cold War Alpha was also great. Yeah, I know that that's a big event, having the two Captain Americas go up against each other, but I didn't read that thing. Yes, the cartoon version of the Thing, when he was just by himself and he could turn into the Thing with "Thing ring, do your thing," or whatever the kids say these days. Will I get 8 Billion Genies if I haven't read 7 999,999,999 genies. No, you probably do need to read those first issues. Many of Alex DeCampi's comics are name your price if you're curious to check out her work. Okay. Thanks for the heads up. Appreciate it. So Alex DeCampi, and the other one you guys kept telling me about was like Skull-Faced Bookseller. That was the one everybody was telling me to read. Shoulder hurts. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know where it is. I also picked up, yes, I don't know how I didn't have that in my pile, but I did also pick up the Ninja Turtles Usagi Yojimbo crossover book. It's called Where When, and it involves, it's by Stan Sakai, so it takes place in sort of current Usagi continuity. Essentially, Usagi and a lot of his allies are going on this campaign for their local daimyo, and they camp out at a village that's being attacked by Kappa. And if you don't know Kappa, it's a Japanese folklore thing of a monster that basically looks like a turtle with a bowl of water for a head, and they drag children into the river. A lot of cultures have a mythology about the dangers of a river because they don't want their kids to drown. So you create some sort of scary monster near there. And Usagi and some of his allies agree to go check this out while they're dealing with an actual Kappa. The Ninja Turtles in the present day are dealing with a scientist who's got time travel, and he goes back in time so that he can conquer the future, a la Kang the Conqueror, essentially. And the Ninja Turtles do end up coming across some of Usagi's allies, who, of course, are going to mistake them for Kappa. So it's good. I like it. I don't know where I put it. Anyway. Have I picked up the 2 issues of I Hate This Place since I came back from hiatus? Absolutely, I have. I thought I talked about it last week. Let me see. Thought that I had it here. Yeah, I did. Last week, I talked about the latest issue. It's quite good. Everything that's scary and weird takes place at this one ranch, and these 2 women have to deal with it. It's crazy. Hold on, there's a question I'm trying to pull up. Wally asks, would I rather want people to buy your Vampirella cover or a car? Well, campaign's over, so you can't buy the Vampirella cover anymore. So I'll say a car, but if it was before that, Vampirella cover. How many issues is the TMNT book? I think it's going to be 4. Only the first one's out so far. I should read the manga The Climber. Okay. Keep that in mind. The Climber. Are the turtles drawn in their original designs? Pretty much. Stan Sakai's been doing crossovers with them since the beginning, so he's actually drawn a lot of Ninja Turtles. He's got their voices right. I've always got Subarus. Yes, always got Subarus. I am pretty happy how the Vela campaign turned out. I think it raised like a little over $17,000, which was somewhere around, I don't know, 340, 350 supporters, something like that. It's pretty good for a first campaign ever that I honestly learned a lot about. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I could do better with 2 things. One, if I did a lot more pre-launch awareness for the campaign, and 2, I think if I did more of the comic myself than just the cover, I think that would also engage people a little bit more. But yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I've seen that Rocket Reindeer, the Toys That Made Us Ninja Turtles episode. Was pretty darn interesting. Pretty darn interesting. Folks, I really need to get going because I agreed to do a chore at a store that's going to close in a little less than an hour. So I really do need to get going. Thank you very, very much for joining me here. I think the next Comic Tropes episode might be ready by tomorrow. It's a fun one. I'm excited to share it with everybody. I think you'll like it. It's a little funnier than some of the ones that I do. Not that I'm reviewing like a crazy golden age character. I just think it happened to be, I had a lot of fun in the editing. So keep your eyes out for that. Thank you very much. If you're still here, would love it if you could remember to hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't. That stuff really helps this channel, helps me a lot. Hopefully a pretty small ask, but I would love it if you were able to do that. Thank you very much for being with me, and I will definitely see you next week with more news and comics reviews. And in the meantime, you know my marching orders. Keep reading comics. Wait a minute. We can't do it that casually. Double salute for you guys. You earned it. Take care.